You are listening to Living with ADHD and CPTSD, available on Apple, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcast. And welcome to another episode of Living with ADHD and CPTSD. So today I'm going to record something that is a little more questioning and debate and examination rather than like an actual issue, because there's a lot of questions and I don't have all the answers. So in a way, I guess you could say I'm looking for external information and advice and opinions from my audience. The question is, if I have a hard time understanding the concept of and doing the act of apologizing when something is wrong, or you've realized that you've made a mistake, or you've done something hurtful, or, you know, like, and the action that has happened requires an apology. And I have a hard time doing the apology, even though I'm sorry and I feel the emotions and that internal understanding that I've done something that is wrong and hurtful. Doesn't matter if it's an accident or purposefully, of course. But verbally, I have a difficult time making an apology. And even like sometimes I don't know if it's because I get triggered or if it is an ADHD thing, because I get, you get a little riled up and you get a little anxious or stressed, or you get worried, or something happens in your mind, and your instinct, like my first instinct whenever something comes up, that the clear step to anybody else is to apologize, like right away. It seems like my instinct is to try to explain or give an understanding to the person, and then either apologize or stop and really not say anything at all. And I have often caught heck for it, because even though I have at times said I'm sorry, my first instinct, unfortunately, is to say, oh yeah, I was trying to start something, or I was working on this and it accidentally, broke. I'm sorry. Whereas the proper etiquette, according to some people, and when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense, is to say immediately, oh, I am so sorry, that was an accident or whatever. And then, that's, of course, the routine. Now, that's the part that I'm trying to understand, is if this is ADHD that is causing me to not apologize, maybe because it's an impulsive, restating or instinct, or is it trauma related and is a child part that's actually coming online and activating and has this fear of apologizing. And I don't know exactly why. Like I'm kind of trying to understand and determine and figure this out in my mind, why there's this hesitancy to want to apologize. Let me give you a bit of a background and some history on my issues when it comes to saying sorry and apologizing, or, I apologize. I didn't realize or whatever, you know. So when I was a kid, I think I might have even have talked about this briefly in one of my episodes previously. But when I was a kid, and I think I was about 5, 6, I don't remember exactly. But I was in a Shoppers Drug Mart. And for those who do not live in Canada, Shoppers Drug Mart is a store that we have that is a pharmacy. It's a kind of like a convenience store. They sell a lot of different items. They sell some electronics. They sell food items. It's not really a grocery store. And they, of course, sell medical related items like pills, bandages. They sell like devices to help elderly or people who have a hard time with movement and walking. And then, of course, you can get your pharmaceutical drugs prescribed and written out, and you pick them up there. And so there was this place I lived in a small city, and at that age, it was 6,000-7,000 people, so it wasn't really big at all. And so we only had one location, and it was a Shoppers Drug Mart on the, I guess you could say, the southeast corner. And it was, you know, I had a lot of stuff, and it had makeup, and it was kind of like our only pharmaceutical store. Anyway, I'm dragging here, and I don't mean to. I was in the store with my mother, and she was walking around getting things and taking care of whatever she needed to take care of, and left me to myself. And I remember kind of walking in the store area, and I found a whole section with makeup. And I don't know specifically what happens, like step by step. I just remember that I got into the makeup, and I opened it up, and I was playing with it, and I ruined a whole bunch of makeup. And I got caught, and I don't remember who caught me, if it was the manager, a store employee, my mother, I don't remember. But I got into real big trouble, and I'm assuming that my mother, of course, paid for the makeup. I have no idea how much. I don't know the details, like I said. But the manager was really upset, of course. And my mother wanted me to apologize. And for whatever reason, I refused to say I'm sorry. I have no idea why. That's the one thing I have never been able to figure out. And I haven't really too much focused on it thoroughly, you know, to the point of getting deep into what could have caused me to not want to say I'm sorry. But it did happen. And I just remember, things I remember is like I was pretty adamant and very stubbornly refusing to apologize. And that's pretty much the memory that I have of it. Now, I do remember that the manager would not allow me in the store. I think I was banned for forever. You know, like that was obviously not really the case, but I was so scared that even when I got older, there was, I know, it was insane. I honestly thought that if at 14 years of age, if I walked into the Shoppers Drug Mart, they were going to recognize me and say, "You, get out. I remember you," you know, that kind of thing. So it was kind of ridiculous to think like 10 years later that they were going to remember me. And I just remember for the longest time, I don't remember the age that I decided to walk in and realize that, hey, they don't know me. They don't remember who I am. Because I remember there was a long time where when I would be on my own, biking around or with friends or whatever, that I kept remembering, oh, I'm not allowed in this store, so I don't walk in. And I just finally one day, I like I said, don't remember the age, I decided, okay, I'm going to walk in and see what happens. You know, silly, because clearly probably the manager who worked there at the time, it was no longer working there for years. And so, yeah, I walked in and went around and bought something and went up to the till. And I kind of have this memory of worrying that they were going to remember me. And of course, nothing happened. Sort of surprising, you know. And I walked in and bought my thing and I went out and I went, hey, they have no idea. They don't remember. So I stopped thinking about being scared. So that's the story of something that would be of interest to my audience, I'm sure. Anyway, there have been many other times in my past where I had a hard time apologizing. I didn't necessarily like stubbornly outright refuse and say, no, I'm not apologizing, I can't, and, you know, getting people upset at me. But it was always this hesitation internally that I was afraid to apologize. And the thing that made very little sense, and I'm sure a lot of you, when you think about it, are probably thinking, but the problem is that it would be worse to not apologize rather than to apologize and face the consequences. And likely it's going to be a lot less dangerous and harmful in the long run if you do apologize than not apologizing. And yes, I know that's a duh when you think about it. It's so obvious. If you don't apologize, people are going to be more upset at you and think that you have no remorse, or you don't care, or you don't feel sorry, or as if you did it on purpose, right? Like you went in there or did something with the intent of hurting somebody, and it was purposeful, like you know, like, and that isn't the truth. But mentally, for some reason, and I hope to, you know, get a better understanding, that I felt that it was less stressful or less, you know, painful for me to not apologize. Or if I did apologize, it took a lot of effort. And even today, there is to some degree this issue when it comes to apologizing. I remember in my past things, it kind of relates to it. There were times when I did something by accident, you know, like I accidentally broke something or thought I could fix and thought I knew what I was doing, and then realized, oh shit, I broke it or I made it worse. And getting really scared, right? Like really worried that someone was going to get extremely mad at me because I broke something. And so my instinct was to find a way, if I could, to sneak away, and hopefully that they would never figure out that it was me. And there were a few times, and thankfully it mostly happened at home. And there were, like I said, there were a few times where it didn't work. Like I wasn't really smart. You know, I didn't think that it was obvious that they were going to figure it out, even if I didn't get caught red-handed, that they knew that it was me. And I got in more trouble for hiding from it than just straight up saying, shit, I'm sorry. I accidentally broke this. I was trying to fix it and I made it worse. I'm really sorry. The fear was that that person was going to get really upset at me and was going to hate me because I did something. And my internal thinking was that it was going to be super serious, that they were going to really, really hate me, and it was going to be forever. And that they were going to be so mad at me that they would never want to talk to me again, or that, you know, like it would be forever changing. And that was what really kind of held me back. Instead of admitting or owning up to something, like, yeah, I accidentally did this. I didn't realize it was going to happen. I'm so sorry. And then there's a good chance that the person would be understanding to go, well, okay, I'm a little upset, but I understand. Thank you for telling me, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And that's the reality, is that if you're upright, or not upright, excuse me, if you're upfront to them that you broke it and you show remorse, or if, let's say, you accidentally hurt somebody, like you're playing around and you're goofing off and you unknowingly hit the person, or you hurt them, if you right away remorsefully and emotionally show that you're sorry, and you verbally explain, yeah, I'm so sorry that I hurt you, or I'm so sorry that happened, I didn't notice, or I didn't see you there in the moment, and they go, well, yeah, you should be more careful, but it's okay, I'm all right. Like, if you like run away, or you blame someone else, or you try to pretend that nothing happened, yeah, they're going to get more upset, and the odds are better that they're not going to think very highly of you for a long time, because you were incapable of owning up to what happened. Like, and that's the worst part about all this. This is really the weirdest irony of everything that I'm discussing, is that I felt that there'd be less danger to me that if I tried at least to get away with it and not face the music, right? Like, not own the fact that I've done something that was harmful, whether it was I said something, or I did something physically to the person. There was this weird thinking that if I didn't own up to it, that they'd never find out it was me, and then I would avoid the persecution, and I would avoid the anger and the hate and the disappointment that person would feel towards me. And yeah, like, as I got older and started to mature, and the odd time when I did have the courage and the capabilities of apologizing to people, I did see in real time that the results were not as bad as I were thinking it was going to be. And so I slowly learned that it wasn't such a hard thing to apologize for. And the only problem was it was never enough to really learn and heal from that, and to show the parts in the past that, look, yeah, there's a good chance that you're gonna catch flack for it. You're gonna get in trouble, and that person might be angry at you, but apologizing is the proper way to try and resolve what happened. And I didn't, I could never understand the fact that, yeah, someone is gonna likely get mad at you, but it's gonna be short term. They're gonna forgive you. It's not like they're gonna say, "Oh, I hate you forever. Don't ever come talk to me again because you broke something," even though you came and apologized to them. There are people, and unfortunately, they aren't exactly healthy people, that do have that kind of reaction. And unfortunately, in reality, you shouldn't really be hanging out with these kind of people, because that's not what you want, right? A person who's open-minded and honest and real, they have the right to be angry. And if it is something that in reality isn't really a major problem or a big issue, they're gonna at some point forgive you for your actions and not gonna be angry at you anymore. But I never really fully understood that. And I always believed that anything that I did, whether it was a small thing that was completely accidental or my stupidity, Or if it was serious, which to be honest, I rarely ever did. I was so scared and so timid that I could never do anything seriously bad. But anyway, yeah, like I had this real fear that anything that I did, that if I owned up to it and apologized to that person, that they were going to hate me forever and that I was going to lose a friend or, you know, have an enemy because they were going to think I'm an evil, bad person and that they would never like me ever again. Even if it was an accidental breaking of something, you know, like, or being scared and saying something that maybe wasn't true at first. That was legitimate in my mind as a really big fear, and not apologizing is, yeah, it's ridiculous. I get that. But I guess you have to understand that when you have complex trauma, parts have these childlike beliefs and thoughts that aren't reality, right? Or they're not adult-like. And when things occur and, you know, you repeatedly have these things happen, your mindset is that the part thinks the ultimate worst is going to occur, rather than knowing the reality is that, yeah, they might get upset at you, but it's only going to be for a short time, and they're going to ultimately forgive you, you know? Like, okay, if you repeatedly break things over and over and over and you apologize, eventually they're just going to go, oh my God, this guy's an idiot. Why does he keep breaking things? And they're going to give up, and eventually, yeah, it would happen. But we're talking about the once in a blue moon sort of thing, not a repeatedly, you know, breaking stuff, or because you're clumsy or you're careless or, you know, reckless. That's a different situation. So yeah, like this, I think I'm starting to understand for myself what's going on here. But yeah, like it is definitely trauma related, and it is something that parts need to see and understand that this is not a dangerous situation. You know, it doesn't mean that it's right to break something or to say something that could be hurtful. Doesn't matter if it's accidental, if it's because of ADHD or trauma, you know, or you're clumsy. You still have to, you know, own up to what you've done and apologize and say, I'm very sorry. I didn't mean to break that. I know how much that meant to you. But yeah, I'm so sorry for breaking that. So if you're able to do that and you see the result and that it's, yeah, okay, they did get upset, or maybe they just said, you know what, it's no big deal. It's okay. You know, I understand things happen, right? Like you get responses like that and you don't feel so bad after. And the fear of that, you know, you're going to get thrown out of the house and say, don't ever talk to me again, you're such a bad person, doesn't happen. So I need to show my parts the reality of this and update them, and they'll trust the adult that saying sorry is not a bad thing. It's not going to cause you to lose somebody or ultimate dread and the worst thing possible. So it's something that you have to work on, and it is something that experience and updating and working with the parts and processing is going to help get to that reality. And yeah, apologizing sometimes, it's true, can be difficult to do. There's multiple factors involved. There's the part that you're taking ownership and you're admitting to people that you're guilty or that you've done something wrong. Some people have a hard time with that factor as well. there's the fear of seeing the person that you love or care about looking angry or sad or even crying because you've done something to hurt them. A lot of people can't handle that very well, and it really hurts them as much as it hurts that person. Well, maybe not as much, but just about. You know, there's that reality that you're disappointing that person, and their thoughts and beliefs on you and what they think about or how they think about you changes. And so there's that fear of losing that person's trust and relying on you to be an honest person or a good person. You know, the reality is sometimes we do things or have things happen that, you know, we don't necessarily mean to do. You know, there are some times where we do mean to do stuff, you know, like sometimes we get angry or we have a temper and we lose that temper, or we're very frustrated and maybe we feel hurt by somebody, so we lash out and we do impulsive things that can be mean or hurtful, or we resent later on. And we have that really bad fear that when we admit to that person that we did something to hurt them, that, yeah, they're going to change how they feel about us and what they think. And it is a reality. Sometimes we have to face that fear and face that reality. It's just a lot of us, because of our trauma, especially if we've had childhood trauma where there's a father or a mother who, when we did something bad, whether it was completely on purpose as a child, you know, children are naturally can be reckless or sloppy or careless, right? Like they don't realize that doing something, it could break something, like running around the house and not being aware of where they are and running into something like a lamp and maybe by accident and breaking it. And the parent gets extremely upset and yells at their kid and maybe spanks them, or if it's really bad, you know, like if it's a abusive father or mother, they get hit a few times. And so the kid develops this extreme fear that, oh shit, if I break something or I get them upset, they're going to hit me, and I don't want that. You know, they want to avoid at all costs getting abused or hit or spanked or disciplined by their parent. And so they either develop that ability to not get into trouble and not break things or not say or do things that are going to result in a discipline, or they become really good at hiding the evidence or making something up to avoid, you know, revealing the truth. And yeah, if that happens, see, the thing is if we become good at hiding the truth and, you know, not revealing and nobody ever finds out, then we start to use that as our default pattern. And I'm not saying this happens with everybody, of course, but some people who develop, like, let's say they become criminals, okay? Or they start to break the law. If they know that they can get away with it, they take more risks and have a higher chance of doing something that could be legally have bad ramifications for them, like jail time or get a record or have to do, work in the community, like community service or something. And it just gets worse from there. Like, that's the thing. And it's developed from, or I say it can be developed from fear of being beaten or disciplined. Like, see, there are some parents out there in the past and currently today that when their child does something and they did it by accident, or they're just being careless or being a child and they maybe hit another kid or they break something in the house, and that parent gets all upset and reacts too harshly and disciplines that kid in a very unnecessary way, whether it's hitting them or spanking them or taking something away and never giving it back to them. And so that child develops that fear. And like I said, one of two ways: they either learn how to hide the evidence and avoid the punishment, or they don't continue behaving that way. The ultimate result that a parent wants, obviously, is for their child to learn to not be like that and behave that way. But a lot of it depends on how the parent disciplines their child. There's going to be arguments and discussions, I'm sure, and there have been for years, on the correct way to discipline a child, whether it's in the shopping mall, whether it's in front of a group of friends, whether it's at home, at school. There's always parents who think there's the correct way and the wrong way to discipline their child when they've done something wrong. And ultimately, physical violence or verbal assault is not correct. That's going to most likely lead to the child either having repressed fear and memories, or learning how to avoid it, or, wanting to they say to their parent, "I'll fix you, you jerk," or "you bad parent," and then they develop ways of getting back at them and hiding the evidence, or they fail at first and it becomes worse, right? So there's all kind of things that there's a root cause to a number of ways that all lead to ultimately something that goes wrong. And I most likely, like I said, I had a parent. My dad was a lot worse than my mother, but I had parents that when something happened, whether it was an accident or I did something wrong, that lashed out, and the discipline was way too strict or strong for the reality of the situation. So yeah, just the way it is. So yeah, just learn how to, if it is indeed triggering, you do have to find ways to overcome it and do some processing, or with your therapist, and then you learn over time how to overcome that fear, and then apologizing isn't really that bad. So yeah. And that is another episode of Living with ADHD and CPTSD. Well, I hope you enjoyed this particular episode. If you have any comments or questions, or maybe a suggestion for my podcast, there are a number of ways to get hold of me. First, you can email me. It's livingwithadhdandcptsd@gmail.com. You can contact me on Twitter. My handle is @ADHD&CPTSD. You can also get a hold of me on Mastodon, which is a new social media website that is kind of taking over a little bit for Twitter. If you look up Living with ADHD and CPTSD at mastodon.world, then you can find me there, you can follow me, and you can give me a shout and let me know what you think. You can also go to my website. It's www.livingwithadhdandcptsd.ca. And you can also check out my YouTube page. It's at Living with ADHD and CPTSD. If you would like to donate to help my cause for my podcast, you can go to ko-fi.com. That's ko-fi.com/Living with ADHD and CPTSD. You can also go to my Patreon page, Living with ADHD and CPTSD, and become a member, where you get special access to all early episodes, plus merchandise. You can purchase merchandise to support this podcast. So, go to Patreon. All right, everybody. That's it for today. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.